We are live from Big 12 Media Days for this Locked On Jayhawks, and we're going to be breaking down. Bill Self just gave out what the starting five is going to be.
You are Locked On Jayhawks, your daily podcast on the Kansas Jayhawks. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's going on? Derek Johnson here with Locked On Jayhawks. We got flashing lights all over because we're here at Big 12 Media Days at the T-Mobile Center, and this is LOJ. Thanks for making it your first listen every day. Thank you to everydayers catching each and every episode of the show. We're going to be breaking down some of the biggest takeaways from Bill Self at KU Basketball Media Days. He gave away the starting five, who are going to be those players. We'll get into that. We also have some special guests that we've been doing some interviews with that we're going to share some of that audio with you. We'll have plenty more audio coming and or video if you're watching on YouTube. Today's episode of the show is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase with Game Time. So, Bill Self released the starting five for the Kansas Jayhawks for Friday's game against Louisville, and that obviously gives you an indication that that is the early look at the season starting lineup. Obviously, things can change with practice, with performance, even in that game. But who is going to be the starting five for the beginning of the season? Probably, good bet that these are the guys. And this is not necessarily a surprise or anything, but Kohl Rosario was the big one that was named by Bill Self as one of those other starters. So the full starting five that Bill Self gave, he said, Darryn Peterson, Melvin Council, Kohl Rosario, Trey White, and Flory Badunga. And obviously with Flory, not a surprise there. You expect a big sophomore season and a big jump in level of play and competition for Flory in his second year at KU. Trey White, the senior who is here at Big 12 Media Days along with Flory and Darryn Peterson. I don't know if that was an indication. I don't know what else would be, but it sounds like Trey White's been one of the best performers over the course of the offseason for KU, and obviously an upperclassman, obviously at the four-man spot. That forward position for KU is not one that they have a ton of guys, a ton of options to go to, so it made sense that he was there. And then those other two were kind of the big other, I don't want to say question marks necessarily, but ones that, had a little bit more question who were going to be the starters for those specific roles. And it feels like Melvin Council certainly was the favorite there as the offseason went on, but it seemed like a pretty good competition between Elmarko Jackson and Melvin Council for one of those spots. Council, obviously the senior, not having to come off an injury and being a little more experienced there, ends up winning the nod, ends up winning the spot. Not that that's, necessarily a surprise or anything like that, but one that we were kind of expecting coming into this. And then with Council, that moves kind of Elmarko Jackson into a spot where, okay, would Bill Self consider starting Peterson, Council, and Elmarko Jackson? I don't think at the end of the day, probably not enough shooting if that is your lineup that you're rolling out there. So then it's kind of a competition between Kohl Rosario and Jaden Dawson. And Dawson has been somebody who's been dealing kind of a little banged up here or there, although that was something else we learned today that Bill Self said as of today, everybody's healthy and good to go for that exhibition game against Louisville. So that means that Dawson is back. That's obviously good news and important for Dawson as he tries to earn minutes and time in the rotation and everything. But Bill Self it's not just that Bill Self said Kohl Rosario, would be in that starting spot right now. And obviously that means he would be beating out Jaden Dawson. It's how definitive he was and how confident he was in sharing that answer about Kohl Rosario being the other starter for KU. It was just the definitive nature, the matter-of-fact nature that Bill Self gave in talking about Kohl Rosario being that other starter that I found very, very interesting here from the standpoint of, it just shows the confidence he has and just how well he played. Like, it's not, I don't know, I feel like if it was really up in the air or if it really was a close competition, like Bill Self would be like, could be this guy, could be that guy. The fact that he's already ready to name that and was so confident in doing so, to me, tells me this kid has been blowing the doors off everyone. And that's obviously important from a standpoint of if you look to adding more NBA talent, future NBA talent into the lineup. Rosario is one of those guys who it seems like has a future in the NBA, so that's a good thing. Adding more athleticism to the lineup. I mean, Jaden Dawson's a solid athlete as well, but I think Rosario is another level of athlete there. Then you get into the conversation of three-point shooting. I think Dawson's probably going to be more of a consistent three-point shooter and more an experienced one. but Rosario probably going to have a higher ceiling shooting, and it's going to be a little streakier, but some of the upswings of the streak are going to be really impressive. And also when you look at what he did over the back end of his, prep career, so to speak, it could be one that points to him, being even better shooting the basketball like continuously. So you look at the hustle plays, you look at the rebounding that he's going to bring from the guard position. It's not that this is a surprise. I don't think it is. It's more of just like that this is confirmation of some of the things that we had been, leaning toward after all the offseason talk and hoopla and everything that had been going on. And it just gets me excited because if you're just talking pure talent and the ceiling of this team, the ceiling of this team raises immensely if Kohl Rosario gets close to or hits his ceiling. And so the fact that he is so confidently in the starting five is my biggest takeaway from Big 12 Media Days for Bill Self and KU basketball, because it does get them, right? If Flory Badunga can play to his ceiling, if Darryn Peterson can play to his ceiling, if Kohl Rosario can play to his ceiling, those are probably your highest ceiling players on the team. Those are your NBA talent players on the team, and that could be really impressive stuff for KU the rest of this season. Obviously, beyond that, like some other takeaways and mentions from Bill Self, he once again talked up Trey White at this event and some of the breakaway settings. And it seems like every time we're hearing from Bill Self now, we're hearing more and more like positive takeaways about Trey White, which just continues to kind of add to the hype and what level of player he could be bringing to the fold. Bill Self also talked a little bit today in the breakout session about how they don't really have that back to the basket post score to the same level, obviously, as what you had with Hunter Dickinson. But I was going to be curious how he kind of answered that question from a standpoint of like, was he going to say, okay, but Flory's been pretty improved at it, and like it's something that we're working at, it's something that we're going to do a little bit of, but we're not going to do it as much. No, it was more so just like, that's not really the way we're trending right now, which I think can be okay. Like there's plenty of teams in the country that win and score high points without throwing a lot of post-ups in there, right? But it was going to be curious to know and to learn about from a standpoint of like, where is Bill Self, where is Flory Badunga with all of these things, and what is his post game grown into? Is there a little more there? Maybe it'll be a little bit more like that 2022 to 2023 team in terms of KU not having a ton of post-up scoring, but again, if you can get it from other areas, which I think you should be able to with Darryn Peterson, with transition play, with strong defense leading to runouts, you're going to be okay. That said, I do think Flory is going to still give you more on the offensive end than you had from that 2022 to 2023 Kansas team in the post. I think it'll be more than that. It'll just be less than what you had with Hunter Dickinson. But those are some of our big takeaways from Big 12 Men's Basketball Media Day and Bill Self and the player breakouts and everything like that. And we also got to catch up with some guests from around the arena at the T-Mobile Center. So we get some of those interviews, learning more about Big 12 basketball, KU men's basketball. Next, you're listening or watching on YouTube to Locked On Jayhawks. Today's episode of Locked On Jayhawks is brought to you by Mazda. Mazda is crafting cars for those who do more than simply move. From footwork to breath work, athletes sweat all the details. Mazda brings the same intention to how we craft every model. You can make everyday drives feel like anything but, from smooth handling to intuitive controls. With all-wheel drive standard in every crossover SUV, you can drive with confidence through almost any season. Like our players, we sweat the details with Mazda, because when you make every move count, impossible becomes irrelevant. Mazda, move and be moved. This episode is also brought to you by Peloton. Peloton's shaping the future of fitness with the brand new Peloton Cross Training Tread Plus, powered by Peloton IQ. It's their most advanced equipment yet, designed to give you real-time guidance and endless ways to move, whether you're running, lifting, or cross-training with your favorite instructors. This is training reimagined. Peloton's built for breakthroughs with tools to help you plan, stay motivated, and reach peak performance. And the personalized class recommendations keep you engaged. You get workouts tailored to your vibe and your energy level each week. So let yourself run, lift, flex, and push forward. Explore the new Peloton Cross Training Tread Plus today at onepeloton.com. We got voice of the Jayhawks, Brian Hanni, here for a little Locked On Jayhawks from T-Mobile in Kansas City. One of the things that Bill Self said today, Kohl Rosario going to be the fifth starter for the exhibition game against Louisville, and I don't know, it's just a crazy rapid, ascension for him. And we were kind of just chatting, and you mentioned I've loved watching his game so far. Yeah. So what can you tell us about Kohl Rosario? What are we going to see when he's on the floor?
I remember his first day on campus going back to June, and it was his very first practice. And within the first 10 minutes, he had 2 rip-and runs where he picked a guy's pocket at center court and dunked on the other end like that. The other day in practice, I saw him hit 7 out of 8 threes. I mean, and you can't expect that every game. Certainly, this is a freshman who reclassified. We got to temper our expectations. But physically, he's got the physical maturity to step in right away and contribute. From a mental standpoint, he is so mature. He's so well composed. I feel like this is a guy that will make that transition as well as any reclassification player could that decided early summer to make a run at this. And he had the great quote. I know it's a cliche, but when you're the best player in the gym, you got to find a new gym, right?
Yeah.
I think he entered our gym and was one of the top 4 or 5 players on day one. So it's fitting that 5 months later we find out he's in that starting 5. Awesome character kid. To me, you're going to fall in love with him if you haven't already. I think we all were charmed with his cowboy hat at late night and the energy he brings and all that. Wait till you watch him start D'ing guys up and hitting threes. He's going to be an immediate fan favorite.
Yeah, and I think one of the things that stood out to me and just kind of looking at his stats from his time at Overtime Elite, and we've heard some of the comparisons of Christian Brown. You think of the hustle plays of Christian Brown, but you think about the rebounding from kind of a guard wing position. And you look at Kohl Rosario, he's putting up 5-6 rebounds per game at OTE. I just can't help but think that, you know, when you look at the versatility that Bill Self is looking for out of some of the players, just being able to get those hustle plays and the rebounding. If you're not going to be the dude when you're on the floor, that's Darryn Peterson, right?
Right.
Can you impact the game in other ways? And I think that the impact of having a player like that from a ceiling perspective, right? I mean, there could be 3 pros on the floor at once, right? When you're talking Darryn Peterson, when you're talking Kohl Rosario. Now, maybe it's a couple years for a guy like Kohl Rosario, who knows? But, you know, with Flory Bidunga, that's something that last year's team didn't have, right?
And I think that's maybe one of the overarching themes of this entire roster is the athleticism, the explosiveness, the length. We've got so many more guys that are just dynamic, game-changing talents. We had some really good college players a year ago, and I'm not slighting them at all, but we didn't see the pieces fit to the point of a championship-type run, and there were some physical limitations at certain spots. I think with this team, you get back to having waves of athletic big men that Bill Self can hit you with. Now you got these rim protectors, rim runners, lob catchers. I mean, it's going to be the best rim protection we've had maybe since Udoka Azubuike. I know Ernest Uday was good briefly in there, but haven't had a true 5-man that could hop on a pogo stick and have 7'6" wingspan. In the case of Paul Mbia, his wingspan's 7'8".
Incredible.
7'8".
I think you saw it. You saw it at late night. But like,
yes,
you can tell, you know.
It's absolutely can tell. And people are sleeping on Bryson Tiller. You know, you forget that before he reclassified to come in the middle of the year, he was a 5-star top 20 recruit. And obviously he was rehabbing an injury, and so you didn't really hear as much about what he was doing in practice because he wasn't out there. But this is a guy that I think will remind folks very quickly that there's some high ceiling potential on him too. So obviously we want to see some shooters emerge and develop. It sounds like Kohl Rosario is doing a lot of that. Trey White's had a great preseason to this point. That's exciting too. But I look at this roster and I just see depth, length, athleticism, so much more in line with what some of Self's classic teams have had, and that's got to get you excited.
So I've made the comparison sometimes with this team to the 09 team. You get obviously very different, but Sharon Collins, basically the end result there is an All-American guard. That's essentially what you're expecting from Darryn Peterson. You think of a sophomore breakout from Cole Aldridge, and kind of similar to what you expect with Flory Bidunga, right? And then you have kind of a bunch of young, talented players. You think of having, a young Tyshawn Taylor. You think about having, some pieces who are maybe coming into their own, and they were able to turn that into a Big 12 champion and a Sweet 16. Yeah. Is there a past team maybe that this one compares to you?
I haven't sat down to look at it like that just yet. But I mean, immediately when you said 09, I thought, well, but we lost in the Sweet 16.
Yeah.
And anything short of the Final Four with this particular group right now is going to...
But they very easily could have beat that Michigan State team, right? I mean, they're up late, and then if you win that game, who knows where you go from there? It's always the NCAA tournament, right?
It's a good comparison, though, for the reasons you laid out with DP and with the Cole Flory thing. My hope would be that Darryn Peterson is such a transcendent talent.
Yeah,
it is on a different plane. And that's not to say he's going to have a better career than what Sharon Collins had. He was a 4-year player, but is he the type of guy that 5 months from now can guide this team to a deep March run where there's moments within the game where he takes it over? With all due respect to some of our offensive initiators the last couple of years, we've not had an alpha with the ball in his hands that at game point can go get his and just, turn a game on a dime like that. I think we have that in Darryn, and the young man that I talked to earlier today, and Darryn Peterson, even in a month's time from our last interview, I'm seeing settle in and mature so much. He started talking to me about leadership and how that's vocally, that's also by example. I want to be a leader on this team. So we're seeing that side really start to emerge. And he came to Kansas with a feel for the game, a cerebral basketball IQ, and a floor vision was already, I don't want to say otherworldly, but you know, on a different level than a typical prospect. Now we're starting to see him grow and blossom. And what's today? October the 21st, 22nd? I don't know what day you're hearing this.
Yeah.
But the point is, just imagine what this could look like if he stays on that ascent over the next 5 months. Next time Derek Johnson and I are standing on this floor in Kansas City, I hope to see a guy that's ready to begin a memorable march of which we've only seen a handful of times, and maybe one that puts him on the short list of Kansas's all-time greats.
And when you hear Bill Self mention him, because we've heard multiple quotes during the offseason about being, you know, the best freshman that he's brought in, that obviously rings very high with the guys that he's recruited. I think you can kind of see that with just the maturity and everything that he kind of brings to the table. And you would think that's going to kind of make everybody else better on the team. If he is the obvious answer for who's going to lead this team in scoring, I think the fun question is who's second.
Well, hopefully it's Flory, because I think Bill still will want to play through the bigs quite a bit. And there's going to be a lot of, you talk about rim running and lob catching and all that. When you've got such a great facilitator, and I think that's an aspect of Darren's game that sometimes gets overlooked, because you hear about the high school games where he scored 60 plus or whatever. You see some of the step back threes that he was launching at late night. Hey, he's going to command a ton of attention, and he's going to be finding these guys on just a quick pump fake and a lob, and boom, there's Flory catching it with that big wingspan and throwing it down. I think Flory has done some things to expand his offensive repertoire to where he's so much more than just a catcher dunker. He can score with post moves. He can score in the mid-range. So my hope is it's him. But I think you've got a myriad of options there. I think White on any given night could step up and give you 15 or 16. I think he's had the type of camp that when Bill Self mentions your name 3 times on Big 12 Media Day, or rather KU Media Day a week ago.
Mentioned it more today,
Probably 6 times today. Then that's a guy that really has caught his eye and stood out. So he would be on the list too. But there will be days where Kohl steps up and hits 4 threes. There'll be other days where, you know, a different scorer emerges. But I think this team will go as far as DP will take them.
He's Brian Hanni, voice of the Jayhawks. You can hear him all throughout the Jayhawk radio network all season long. Big one for football this weekend, too, with K-State. Brian, appreciate the time, man.
Hey, I just noticed this whole interview, we've had the West Virginia logo.
Yeah, that's right. Little West Virginia and Utah.
The guy that designed that, though, is a Jayhawk, John Martin.
Really?
He also did all of the Kansas Hall of Fame paintings, including that 45-year-old mural. So in case you were wondering why we had WV over our shoulder, shout out to John Martin, the most incredible painter I've ever seen, and he happens to be a Kansas Jayhawk.
That's amazing. And if you're listening, go check it out on YouTube so you know what Brian's talking about. College football is back, and I couldn't be more excited. The tailgates, the rivalries, the energy in the stands, there's just nothing like it. But let's be real. Actually getting tickets can feel more like a battle than the game itself. Endless queues, hidden fees, price jumps at checkout. That's why I use Game Time. It's the app that gives the advantage back to the fans. Easiest way to score last-minute tickets with the best prices with no surprise fees. What you see is what you pay. So check that out with Game Time. You can see the images of your seats from the picture on the phone. So take the guesswork out of buying college football tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, promo code LOCKEDONCollege, LOCKEDONCOLLEGE for $20 off. Swipe, tap, ticket, go. Download Game Time today. Derek Johnson with Nick Springer live from Big 12 Media Days, and I can see in front of me they have a bunch of team logos with Venmo accounts. Are they accepting donations?
Yeah, I don't know. I was thinking maybe that's a good NIL thing, you know, like, hey, Venmo us some money. You know, we're West Virginia, we're poor, we need money. Please Venmo us, you know, whatever it may be. But yeah, this is a bit of an interesting setup. We're actually sitting in the stands, so this is kind of a KU way to view it. We're about to watch Jerome Tang do comments.
Well, also, if you notice, there's a couple KU players who are shooting around on one of the hoops here. One is Flory Badunga, one is Trey White. I do not see Darryn Peterson, at least yet. But if you would notice, those two players, they have both decided to wear their hair in cornrows.
Okay.
Do you think you could pull off cornrows?
You know, honestly, I think I could.
I don't think you could.
Really? You don't think I could?
I don't think you could.
I feel like I probably could. I mean, you know, I look tough. You know, I'm a big jacked guy, you know.
Okay, so that brings up my next question. If if you could make your team, they all had to wear, like, let's say it was a video game, you know how you can adjust everybody's hair.
So we're going like
appearance or whatever.
Yankee style
Yeah.
here.
So every team has to have the same haircut.
Okay.
What haircut would you give KU and why?
I think you'd have to just, oh gosh, I don't know. Probably just like a buzz cut, I guess. You know,
That's
like
so
like-
boring, dude.
But dude, then we're tough. We're like the prison team. You know,
But could
we
you
all have buzz cuts.
Could you imagine a team with all mohawks? Or a team with all, like,
So I'm assuming we're just.
big
I'm assuming we're
afros, you
just.
know? That's-
We're stepping into we're breaking the fourth wall here and saying that anybody can have any
anybody
haircut,
can,
right?
yes.
Okay.
You might be somebody who, like,
Can't-
you know, you're Alex Caruso, you're already balding
yeah.
when you're in
In this-
college.
in this scenario,
but
you
in
can
this
just-
scenario, you know, Rogaine or whatever,
Sure,
whatever's
sure,
going on, right?
Sure. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know what I would choose there.
What about like some Fu Manchu action?
oh, so
mustache-wise?
we're adding, like, facial hair and
Yeah,
stuff?
why not? Think about it. Then it's like we're the Masters
What
Man
about-
team. You know,
what
we
about,
can
like, the,
levitate we can levitate the basketball. Or something.
Yeah,
I
what
don't
about,
know.
like, mutton chops, you know? Everybody has mutton chops?
No, this is not 1853. No, that's weird. Look, all I'm saying is, if this is what you're going with, you got to think about the future. Okay?
Yeah.
You don't want to pick something that's going to scare off potential recruits, right? If you say, hey,
Mm-hmm.
you got to have a mutton chop to play for us, guess what? There goes all your 5-star recruits. You think Taylor Kenny wants to have mutton chops playing at KU? No.
No, probably not. Yeah, that's a good point. That makes things a little more difficult. I don't know, maybe the team captain gets the pick. Or maybe
Okay,
it's
yeah.
like a game-to-game thing, you know? It's like 1 week you do this,
true, yeah.
another week they got the barber
That'd be
shop
cool. You
in
know,
the-
if it's
in
like
the
a
dorms.
uniform thing, you know. Now I'm envisioning like you ever play Grand Theft Auto, you know, you go in and you sit down at the barbershop and you can just
Yeah.
switch out whatever, you know, do something
Yeah,
like that.
no, that's what I'm saying with, like, video games and stuff.
Yeah, 100%. I'm with you.
Well, we probably should talk at least a little bit of basketball.
One more thing.
Oh, yeah,
I don't know if you saw earlier, the mascots were having like a little mini scrimmage down the court. Did you have to
okay.
see that?
Yes.
It was the different mascots were having a scrimmage.
Yeah. So are you saying if the mascots were like the actual version of themselves, not
Yeah.
just the people in the costumes, like
Yeah.
if the right now I see the Iowa State Cyclone, like if the Cyclone was actually well, I don't know, would it be the bird or would it be the actual tornado version of the Cyclone?
I think
don't
you'd
know.
have to go with the bird, I guess.
So like
because that's its
what
mascot?
they're dressed up as were actually like
animals.
animals.
Or,
Yeah, they were like
I guess-
centaurs or whatever, you know? Who would
Yeah.
you take?
Now that begs a big question with the Wildcat because the Wildcat is messed up because it's a dude.
It's half.
that's just
Well, it's like, yeah, it's like
Yeah,
a
it's
centaur.
like
It's like a it's like a
it's the
reverse
dumbest
mermaid.
mascot of all
reverse
time.
mermaid, but
yeah,
with a cat.
It's
yeah.
stupid. I hate it.
Who are you taking in that? I mean, in this hypothetical, like, does the Cyclone, does the Jayhawk, is it able to fly? Because that is going to be such an advantage in a basketball
I
game.
am under the impression that the Jayhawk, as a mythical bird, is not able to fly. That is my impression. I don't know if people feel
But if
differently.
it's a mythical bird, it should be able to have, like, extra powers. I think it should be able to fly, like, double.
Yeah, but I don't know. I mean, it doesn't give off those vibes when I look at it. You know. Now, I will say, if you look at like the
Holy
1912
cow!
Jayhawk,
Look how tall the hat is for the Oklahoma State Cowboy. This is probably horrible that you can't see actually the mascots, but you know, I don't know. That might block some shots on its own. I would say this: like the Colorado Buffalo, that thing's going to be like stampeding to the lane. You know,
Yeah,
that's going to be like your
you taking a charge on that thing?
no chance.
Exactly.
That's going to be like your 6'5" like power forward. Had no shooting ability, but it's going to get rebounds.
Short
it's going
arms,
to drive.
can't
it's
do
gonna,
anything.
Yeah, nobody's going to stop it on drives.
Yeah.
What else would be good? I mean, the Horned Frog, like nobody's going to, if it backs you down in the post, you're going to take all those pricks and pokes? Probably not.
Yeah, but the Horned Frog, the Horned Frog is soft. I think
Okay.
you could just easily,
So this could go one of two ways. The West Virginia Mountaineer, it is a human and it has hands, which are helpful in basketball, right? Like
Correct.
being able to shoot the ball, but it also doesn't have any like extra speed like something else might have.
we're
with an
entering
animal.
We're entering Mike Leach territory with this conversation. Mm-hmm. But I will say, does the Mountaineer get to use his musket? What if he can just shoot the buffalo?
No, you
and
can't
then-
shoot people. No, that'd be a foul.
That's a foul.
Foul in prison.
He didn't touch him.
prison, actually.
He didn't touch the buffalo.
Well-
How's that a foul?
I mean, if you shoot someone, you're going to jail. Okay, maybe it's not a foul.
Well,
maybe it's not a foul, but
I
he is
didn't
going
say
to prison.
he shoots
He
the
is going to prison.
cowboy. I said he shoots the buffalo. Or
I
the
guess
bear,
technically is
or
that
the
well you
wildcat.
can't shoot bison anymore. That's definitely illegal.
See,
Endangered species,
does like
right?
Pistol Pete get 2 6-shooters?
Well, I think they can shoot the birds, right? Because if it's in hunting season, I don't know. It depends. Are we in hunting
interesting.
season? This is opening a can of worms I would have never expected.
Yeah, but-
all right, one basketball question.
Let's
before
yeah.
we
I was
go.
about to say. Let's actually talk.
How good is Darryn Peterson?
Yeah, I think he's pretty good. I think he's the real deal.
Mm-hmm.
One of the funniest things about it is at KU Media Day last week, everybody, Bill Self, obviously, and all the players were saying, oh, Darryn Peterson, he's great at everything. He's great as a passer, great as a ball handler, great as a shooter, great, athlete, all these things, right? So then eventually when Darryn Peterson, we had the chance to talk to him, I just asked him straight up, I was like, hey man, like, everyone says you're the best. So like, what are you working on? What are the coaches telling you in practice if you're just the best at everything? And he gave a pretty good answer. He talked about moving without the ball, right? Because when you're a player of that caliber at the high school level, you have the ball in your hand 98% of the time, right? And while at Kansas, we expect Darryn Peterson to have the ball in his hands a lot and initiating the offense at KU, it's not going to be 98% of the time. It's not going to be every offensive possession. So that is a part of his game that is honestly a little bit new to him potentially at KU, because he's going to have to probably learn how to play without the ball and move without the ball and understand how to work with his teammates and all those things. So I thought it was fascinating to hear him talk about that, and that's what he's working on. It makes sense, like I said, because he's going to be coming into a system where, again, yes, we anticipate that he's going to be the guy with the ball in his hands a lot of times, but obviously not to the level that he was at the high school level. So that was what really stood out to me. And I think beyond that, you don't really want Darryn Peterson to be exhausting all of his energy on the offensive end, because the reality is he has a chance to be one of the best defenders for Kansas too. Mm-hmm. But I don't know that he can necessarily do that if he's being asked to carry the ball so much on the offensive end. So I don't know, that's something to keep an eye on in terms of his development over the course of the season is, when he has the ball in his hands versus when he doesn't have the ball in his hands, what's he doing? How's he playing? How's he still staying engaged in the offense and all those things? So it doesn't sound like it's something that is going to be an issue, but I'm excited to see, I guess, what he does in that area.
All right, he's Nick Springer. Where can you find your work?
You can find us on the KC Sports Network, paid podcast on at Kansas Jayhawks, KCSN on YouTube, Apple, Spotify, all that great stuff. You can follow us. It's paid at paid KCSN on Twitter. For all of Kevin's great tweets, Kevin Flaherty, he does a lot of the tweeting. You can always tell which one of us is tweeting, Derek, because my tweets are always like, folks, look at this, and then Kevin's always like very serious, So you can always tell which one of us is tweeting. But
if you like the tweet, it's Kevin. If you don't like the tweet, it's Nick. We'll just
yes.
go with that.
Yes.